In everything we do, we are guided by three basic but important principles that form the bedrock of our culture: respect, integrity, responsibility.
The Subcommittee on Indian, Insular, and Alaska Native Affairs will come to order.
With respect to S607, the National Center strongly endorses establishing the Native American Business Incubator Program.
We believe in the sovereign right of our tribal communities to define prosperity on their own terms.
Sometimes we just need folks to tell us, what do you need and how can we help, right? Because we're not on the ground every single day, whereas business owners are.
If you Google what the true impact of a Native business is, we impacted over $300 million in job creation in Oklahoma.
Success rarely happens overnight. We are shifting the economic development conversation in our country.
We recently visited Kodiak, Alaska, a rural village north of the Arctic Circle, access only by plane and seasonally by boat. What we saw in Kodiak led to some unique out-of-the-box thinking of how to build and grow businesses in rural communities that can be copied in other parts of America.
Many of you I'm on boards with, many of you, we talk socially. Many of you have been in multiple offices of mine telling me how to do my job. So Annette, you know what I'm talking about, Annette?
We accept responsibility to preserve our cultural integrity, and we strive to balance doing business while maintaining our cultural values. I am the ultimate opposite of a micromanager. I used to always tell my teams, I said, I want you to come to the table with a notebook of ideas.
Diversity means perseverance. It means resiliency. No one in this room is afraid of doing the work, but as Indian country grows, we need to consider new markets and new ideas. The work that we're doing now directly impacts this community, bringing jobs into the community and education opportunities. Tribal and Native-owned businesses are involved in everything from energy to telecommunications to financial services, agriculture, and even brewing and distilling. There's no reason that commerce in Indian country needs to stop at the borders of our reservations or the borders of the United States.
So my name is Jeremy Dennis. I'm an artist and photographer from the Shinnecock Indian Nation in Southampton, New York. I'm trying to start a new business called Ma's House on the Shinnecock Reservation. I started Ma's House as a means to celebrate Shinnecock. We're a small community of about maybe 600 tribal members on territory. Like if you ask someone from Southampton, they don't even know what Shinnecock is. We went down the nonprofit route just because the work that I want to celebrate at Ma's House on the walls, it's more in the realm of social justice type of visual art and telling stories that are really hard to hear sometimes. The original idea actually came from my grandmother, Loretta Silva, whose nickname is Ma. And towards the end of her life, she said that the house that she left to the family should become a museum. That'll not only be a museum to bring guests in and share our history, but also be a place where I can bring in other artists to celebrate their work. It'll just be a very dynamic space for people to celebrate art in the community.
First thing is, why invest in Indian country? There's money to be made. I mean, the philanthropic side is super important, but in the long run, we have to be able to sustain ourselves. We cannot sustain our language programs, our cultural programs, our youth programs if we are not making our own money and if we don't have that economy. So we need you to have faith in us and help us make money, real money, long term.
I formalized Womer and Associates in 1992. Started out small, kind of freelanced as consultants for a couple of years, and then the focus was on mostly engineering services.
Our mission is to serve Indian country, and we do that with architecture, engineering, and the other piece of that is construction.
Coming from the reservation, I worked with architects and engineers and some of the contractors, and there was a misunderstanding, I think, between one culture and the tribal cultures. And getting in there and bringing, I'd say, an honest approach towards projects and working with tribes and trying to bridge that gap between non-tribal consultants and tribal consultants at the same time. One of my main focuses was bringing in other tribal professionals. And over the years, we've employed, I'd say, well over 100 tribal members from various tribes, which to me, that's what it's all about.
In the workforce, people don't really understand what it takes to be an engineer, a licensed engineer, or what they do. I would encourage any native that is, likes math or even science to consider engineering. They could always come here and we would help them with their career path and helping them be successful.
I know that my people were the original successful business owners and operators in the state of Michigan. So for me to own and operate my own company as I have for over 20 years now does not feel like a stretch out of my culture. I feel like I'm honoring it. We adapt, we adopt, we're resilient, we're creative, we're innovative. That's part of our DNA. That's what flows through your veins.
Cacao was established in the early 1900s. It's located where two channels of the Kodiak River meet the Squirrel River. When I was growing up, the population of the town was about 125, 130 thereabouts, and it's now about 365 people, I believe, with the last census. We have 3 privately owned businesses in this community. It's our business, which has been here since the early 1930s. The Staley's family, the Lycier, and they have an air taxi operation and a little store. And then we have the Alaska Commercial Company, which is a Canadian-owned conglomerate, and that's it. You have to learn to be self-sufficient here. Traditionally, the community has relied on grants, and that's worrisome to me because you're not in charge of your destiny when you're constantly applying for and hoping you'll be selected for the grant funding. We have good people here, and some of them just are underutilized. What I'd like to see is these young people coming out of school be grabbed and pulled into activities that'll help them grow and develop. Part of my goal and the reason I'm involved in NCAIED was thinking about the need for this community to get in charge of its economic future and to try to work with the tribe to try to help them understand there are economic opportunities here, but you have to take steps to set up the businesses, whether it's a small coffee shop, whether it's a small mechanic shop, whether it's a store, a native-owned store. There are opportunities to contribute to employment here in this town. I would love it if there was a guy I could pick up the phone and hire to fix something if it broke down. Really, it's building belief in yourself as a tribal organization, and that's what I think has been lacking. And so what I'm trying to do gently is work with the tribal council and the tribal members and sort of throw some ideas out there and what do you think about this? We could I think through economic expansion of the tribal enterprises, you can start to employ more people, and those individuals can start thinking about themselves in a different way. Opportunity is here, so how do we create, through our activities, a sense of hope and a future and seeing yourself in the future?
My problem was I was going to all these events, all these networking Indian conferences, and I was in it for me. Instead of going in with a mindset that, you know what, my whole purpose in life is to make you happy. Service, helping people out. Going in with a mindset that says that I want to help you with your problems. I want you to be successful. And if I have the attitude of I can go out there and help you be successful, and all of you have the attitude of I want to help you be successful, then we got business.
Rockin' and rollin' at the Hawaii Fudge. We're in Maui, and we're here with Ashley at the Hawaii Fudge Company. Tell us how you guys got started.
Yeah, I mean, it goes way back 2013, so not too far back. They really just were interested in creating this fun space for chocolate and all the things that kind of surround it, like toffee and brittle and taffy, things like that, kind of create the Hawaiiana vibe that most people just really either want to remember their trips by that they've had, or that are local to the island that love the flavors that we've included in all the products. And it just in the last year, we've expanded to like 45 more retailers, just in that short time frame.
So you've been going gangbusters with some of your retail shops. Who are some of those customers?
Yeah, I mean, well, when COVID hit, we kind of had to get creative and really grow into that space more so than we were before. So we have now partnered with DFS, which is the duty-free stores at the airport, so you can find us there. We're in Dylan's Candy Bar over on Oahu, which is such a great fit for us. Hilo Hattie, Foodland, which is all the stores across the island.
How is the fudge made? What are the ingredients?
Yeah, so first of all, there's butter, which everything with butter always tastes better, of course. And then you've got the chocolate and the cream mixture that goes all together. And then you create like a fudge base. So we're either working with the chocolate fudge base or vanilla fudge base, and then we add in all of the fun stuff. So we're super thankful to partner with local companies here to source the ingredients locally from the islands. That was really important to us. Even some of our fruit flavorings and things like that, they're made from like official fruit, they're not artificial, and they come from Oahu. And then we mix everything together and then we pour it. So it takes a lot of love and care. And then these are our 1/4 pound pieces. So this is Lilikoi Cheesecake Pog, which is after the drink again, turtle, and then some of our other flavors back there, as well as our brittle. So the brittle is more of like a harder snap. It kind of gets stuck in your teeth a little bit, but some people really like that. So our toffee is more of like a soft snap with caramel and white chocolate. There's macadamia nuts in there as well. And then our brand new taffy, we just released this about 2 months ago, and it's all tropical flavors.
Where do you see yourself in the future, in the next 5 years?
Well, we're actually venturing more into the candy realm. I think we've kind of gotten a good fix on the chocolate and the fudge world. So we just were thinking of what are some other ways that we can send Hawaii out to people on the mainland. And so we're gonna take these bags and we're gonna offer candy. So like gummy sharks and gummy starfish, mermaid tails, all the things that, you know, like kids and even adults will just find really fun and exciting. I just think we have such a fun variety of things that, like the flavors. I think normally when you think of chocolate fudge, it's just the chocolate or maybe peanut butter and things like that. There's no other place on the island or other fudge that we even know of that has the same sorts of flavor offerings. And the fudgelets, this is a trademark item that we've created and made, and no other company sells it.
And how else can our viewers reach you?
Well, on our website, so hawaiifudge.com, and then we're on Instagram and Facebook as well. So they'll get a few behind the scenes of us making the fudge here because everything is made in-house. We love to share that with everyone and send that there's actually people that are making these small batches and we're not this big corporation. This is very much a small business and we like to keep it that way for the quality and those relationships that we build with everybody.
A lot of what we do is not even just from a pan-Indian standpoint, if you will, but is actually working by community to identify what are perhaps their creation stories or some of their traditions or their language, and that's what we incorporate into what would be traditional STEM curriculum, but we modify it so that they can engage in it.
My name is Donnie Stevenson, Vice Chairman of the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe. I oversee all of our for-profit businesses to provide for our people and our future.
For the last 25 years, Emerald Downs has provided thoroughbred racing in the state of Washington. People come here and watch and wager on horse racing from around the world. A lot of folks saw our T-Rex race that went viral on the internet. That happened right here at Emerald Downs. In 2015, Muckleshoot took over operations of the racetrack, which really helped support the entire industry throughout the state.
Muckleshoot Casino opened its doors 25 years ago. We're in the second stage of a 3-stage expansion that will ultimately result in a resort casino. The economic opportunity that gaming has presented for the Muckleshoot Indian Tribe can't be overstated. Within a single generation, the children that have grown up since tribal gaming, they've grown up in a world where the tribe has always been in a position where it had, and that's as a direct result of this gaming property.
So when COVID hit, we were shut down for about 2 months. Of course, it was slow starting back up, but I think by summer of last year, we hit a stride. We can see normal on the other side. The tribe's support of team members paying full pay and benefits and the community at large was unbelievable.
I'm incredibly proud of the effort and the energy that the Muckleshoot Tribe has presented during the course of the worldwide pandemic. To date, we've provided somewhere north of 4,000 vaccinations, almost exclusively through drive-through events. Folks never even had to exit their vehicle. And then there were a number of local tribes that we also provided food baskets, pallets of water, as well as $10,000 grants. The way we traditionally define wealth as a tribal people had everything to do with what we were able to provide to others. That's certainly at the core of who we remain today.
My business partner and I talked about why native food wasn't readily available on a daily basis. And so we wanted to take what they had originally created, revamp it, so we could open a space for native people. We feel like it's our obligation to support more than just like opening the doors and selling food. All of us as native cooks, chefs, restaurateurs, whatever you want to call it, what I think is important through our approach for all of us is that we have to make sure that we're a positive reflection on like communities that we're representing. We have this saying where we say, native first, local second, everything beyond. If we can put our money back into tribal food producers, family, native food producers, like that's our key, because then we can kind of grow together. We're the ones that are creating the voice for what the food is. Because if you don't do that, then others create that for you, and then your food or your stories or your purpose doesn't have the meaning of what it should be and where it comes from. Yeah.
My name is Yvette Fielder, and I'm with the National Center for American Indian Enterprise Development, and we're going to be talking with Ann today with the Maui Chocolate and Coffee Tours.
Well, my name's Ann Tumala, and I've been on Maui for about 37 years, and so I was born here. No, and I've been in quite a few different industries, but I've been doing these tours for about 5 years, and started out just chocolate at first, and then when we came upon this farm, and this farm is called Kupa'a, and it's a privately owned family farm, so it's really cool. This property was purchased about in 1973 by a gentleman named Jerry Simpson. We have this synergistic relationship because we're the tour operator here on their farm, so they can continue to keep farming, and then we can educate our guests, locals and visitors, and teach them about history of cacao, and we can educate them about coffee, which both of those products have been here for a long time, since about the 1800s. This is a young cacao tree. It's actually about 5 years old. We know that it's over 5 years old because it actually had blossoms on it at one point till the big storm hit. You can tell that it's over 18 months because that 5 branches you see, that's called a jorquette, and those form at about 18 months. And thereafter, about a year or so, if we were in a southern region, we'd have blossoms.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started, and I know you also did some wine tours at one time, so you have a really entrepreneurial mindset.
Pretty much. I went to business school at University of Washington, and but I knew that I didn't want to work for corporate America, and I knew I didn't want to be an accountant. I appreciate them very much, but when I moved over here, I ended up in the wine industry, working for a distributor. So selling wine to hotels and restaurants, and did that for about 15 years. And I was like, well, I wanted to try my entrepreneurial wings. So I opened a little gourmet cheese and wine shop. Yep, and you'll laugh, because that's what we wanted to do, is make people laugh. It's called Who Cut the Cheese? Because people were so like, okay guys, it's just fermented grape juice, that's what wine is. And then the curd nerds came, the cheese people, and we're like, guys, it's just fermented milk. So I guess I like fermented products. So I had the shop for about 10 years, and then this opportunity came to start learning about chocolate and coffee. And chocolate, I didn't realize, this whole artisan chocolate movement started about 25, 30 years ago. And so a winemaker segued out of wine and went into single origin chocolates. And that's what we focus on, a single origin chocolate. So what we do is we're going to score it, because we don't want to cut the seeds. Because if you cut the seeds, it won't ferment. If it's in here too long and they germinate, they won't ferment. Look at this. Oh, wow. Isn't that amazing?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So this white fuzzy stuff is called the pulp. You want to smell that? Does it smell like chocolate?
Yeah.
It. Yeah. Yeah. Pass it over. Yep. You get a little chocolate. Now wait till you taste it. Go ahead and just pick that up, and you can just
eat
suck
the whole
it.
thing?
Yeah. Put it in your mouth and enjoy the fruit. Sweet, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to bite it in half, you can see the live purple nibs. And so we ferment these. We put them all in like a big insulated box, and then we get the temperature up to about 120 degrees for 6 to 8 days. And the yeast that we use, we get them right those banana leaves over there. And so you wrap these all in that banana leaf, try to maintain that temperature for 6 to 8 days. After we ferment them, then we dry them. And I'll give this a little crack for you. And you can see the transformation that's starting to happen. So go ahead and you can peel the shell off. And then the inside is the cocoa bean. So we call it cacao when it's fruit, and then when it's transitioning, then we go, and this is a cocoa bean.
Wow.
But this has not been roasted yet. This is only fermented and dried. And you can go ahead and enjoy those nibs.
I can eat these too?
Yeah, yep, that's what the chocolate's made from.
All of this?
Mm-hmm, those are the nibs.
It's delicious.
Starting to get chocolatey.
Can I just take the whole thing? I see a whole ecosystem here with the plant life and the animal life. We can hear the many species of birds going on and the chickens. And so how many acres is the farm in whole in itself?
It's 16, and we're at an elevation of about 1,900 feet, so we're right on the slope of Haleakala. And when I first moved the tour up here, I didn't realize that cacao trees grew at this elevation, so it's kind of cool. We have all kinds of different things here growing on the farm. The main thrust was the coffee, because there's about 450 Arabica plants that Janet and Jerry planted. And the cacao has been coming along. But outside of that, they grow everything from artichokes, avocados to zucchini. Obviously, all not coming out of the ground at the same time. But amazing how the sustainable farming is here.
Is this a pineapple tree?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because we fondly call this the tourist pineapple tree. And it's actually called a challah tree, and the leaves are called lauhala. And the Polynesians actually weave their sails to come to Hawaii with these leaves. So the Hawaiians would actually weave the roofs for their hales or their houses. And they still today, they make mats and hats and little decorative pieces, bowls with the leaves. They're very, very durable.
You mentioned something about dental.
I've heard that there's a medicinal quality that if you suck on these seeds, it helps prevent gum disease. So now if we could just get kids to put these on their teeth instead of candy corns, dentists would be happy.
Yeah, right. How did COVID affect you? Did it affect the farm with the tours?
We shut down 7 months, but goes to show we're very resilient, because we were also the first tour operator that surfaced when the state reopened. So being down for 7 months, well, did a lot of things. Face masks were very hard to get here in Hawaii, so we made 10,000 of those. Just kept hoping that we'd be able to come back to the farm, because we didn't know if we were going to be able to continue to operate, and everybody didn't know what they were going to do. So we did, and here we are. We were actually COVID compliant before COVID, because just the nature of the tour. But of course, yes, we had extra measures, everybody face masks, this and that. And we pivoted to, and I know everybody likes that word, but we ended up not mixing bubbles. So to make people comfortable, we just did privates. So even if it's just 2 people, it'll be a private, and it's stuck. People like privates.
What is this huge tree?
Well, actually, this is just a little baby. It's a little over 20 years old, and it was like this big when it was planted. And it's called
a baby tree?
It's called a kapok, and it originates from Brazil, South America. And this tree is about 30 feet tall. But in its homeland country, they grow to be 180 feet tall.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's very cool. And also, this is not a tree hugger tree. Do not hug that tree. See those little thorns? That will impale you. That is Mother Nature's way of keeping rodents, if we had wild monkeys or rats, from nesting in the tree, because that keeps them out of the tree.
So at the National Center, we do a number of things, and we interview small business owners, and we want to learn about their business. And what would you say to a young entrepreneur who is kind of on the fence of, oh, I want to get into a business of my own? Or what would you say to a younger Ann, or when you first started? What type of resources do you think is helpful and beneficial for small business owners?
Well, always look to what the county can offer, or at the state level. We've got great resource centers for small businesses. But first you should ask yourself some questions to find out if your profile really fits that. How tolerant are you to risk? Because there's risk in everything, and especially a small business. And probably Hawaii, in my opinion, is the most challenging place to run a business in the state. It's very, very challenging. 1, because we're so isolated. 2, we're very volatile also to tourism. Even after COVID, we were thinking, well, are we going to diversify? But tourism is really our mainstay thing. So if you're looking to start a business, make sure you love what you do, because if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. So and find your niche, and it really, that has to come within. And so your tolerance for risk, your passion, find your passion and feed it. And look to your community and also your friends or family for support as far as emotional support to help you drive, to keep your drive going.
This is the building where a lot of our congressional members of Congress actually have their offices. And today we're going to go talk to some of those members of Congress. So come on.
The greatest single development in the Oklahoma economy since the 1980s has been the rise of tribal economies. And the tribes in the state now are 10% of the GDP of the state. They employ well over 100,000 people in a comparatively small state. And if you look at where their enterprises are at, by history, the tribes are historically in some of the most disadvantaged parts of the state. And yet, I always say, these are 39 corporate headquarters that are never going to Dallas or Houston, and these are jobs that are never going to be shipped to China. Yep. And their willingness to invest back in areas that have been historically undercapitalized, because that's where their people are at, has been an incredible incentive to the Oklahoma economy. So you got the business model of developing multiple businesses and providing multiple opportunities. And by the way, to non-native alike, that's one of the big selling points in Oklahoma. We employ an awful lot of people that not only aren't Chickasaws, they're not native. Yep. So tens of thousands of jobs. And so other people see the advantages of Indian entrepreneurship because they see it very directly in a paycheck.
The tribal job creation, the tribal drive, that a lot of people don't even know how important that is of the job creation for the state of Oklahoma or for the state of New Mexico or the state of Arizona.
I started a business after my daughter was born because I didn't want to put her in daycare. And I know that's the motivation for a lot of women business owners. They can't afford daycare. They don't want to put their kids in daycare. They want to be available and set their own hours so that they can take care of their families and do the things that they need to do. So I would say, don't be afraid to step out and find the support that you need. There's so many organizations that will help women business owners. I think when Native women get involved and you find a network of people to help you, you will learn things that you didn't know. And so I encourage women to find the help they need, get involved in a network, make sure that you have people to call when you have questions, that you're not just sitting there, wondering. When I had my salsa company, I was my only employee because I couldn't afford to hire anyone. And yeah, sometimes I was afraid to reach out, but I realized that you need to reach out. You need to find people who have the experience that you don't have yet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's creating that network for yourself, and oftentimes advocating for yourself to do that and create that network.
The times that I have had the opportunity to attend RES, it has been the connections and the learnings from people who are doing work in a space that I don't have any experience myself in. That has been the biggest takeaway for me.
I think that's so important too because a lot of times in our communities, they don't get to see people that, oh wow, if they can do it, maybe I can do it too.
I feel like I've always met people who are trying out something new. They're trying to figure out, how does this have a direct positive impact on economic development in Indian country. So often we in Indian country get to see that we're making decisions that are going to impact our children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. I always would feel like I had almost like a new breath of life from going to Res.
It starts with us. It starts with your courage as businesses to be able to not give up when one door is shut, to be able to speak up, to help your companies establish an understanding of the value of doing business.
So my name is Jeremy Dennis. I'm an artist and photographer from the Shinnecock Indian Nation in Southampton, New York. I'm trying to start a new business called Ma's House on the Shinnecock Reservation. I started Ma's House as a means to celebrate Shinnecock. We're a small community of about maybe 600 tribal members on territory. Like if you ask someone from Southampton, they don't even know what Shinnecock is. We went down the nonprofit route just because the work that I want to celebrate at Ma's House on the walls, it's more in the realm of social justice type of visual art and telling stories that are really hard to hear sometimes. The original idea actually came from my grandmother, Loretta Silva, whose nickname is Ma. And towards the end of her life, she said that the house that she left to the family should become a museum. That'll not only be a museum to bring guests in and share our history, but also be a place where I can bring in other artists to celebrate their work. It'll just be a very dynamic space for people to celebrate art in the community.
My name is Joel Smith. I'm a member of the Cacao Nation of Oklahoma, and I'm Chief Credit Officer at Native American Bank.
My name is Shannon Ward. I'm the Chief Lending Officer here at Native American Bank.
My name is Veronica Lane. I am the Business Development Officer here at Native American Bank.
Our expertise is really in the areas of lending to tribes, tribal enterprises, and to businesses that are located on reservations. So we have a unique experience and expertise in understanding issues around tribal sovereignty and concerns that traditional banks have in lending with tribal trust land as the collateral.
Native American Bank was formed in 2001 with a mission to have an entity that is owned by tribes to help alleviate the problems of lack of banking services and lack of access to capital in Indian country.
It was really exciting to bring those type of opportunities to reservation areas and to Native business owners. Working with small businesses too, I feel like it's very powerful for them to get to the point of where they can actually apply for financing. I feel like I give back not only to my community with the projects that I get to finance back on the Navajo Nation, but just the Native community in general.
We have always looked 7 generations ahead. We never look for immediate successes. It's always about sustainability.
A big part of that is teaching our tribal citizens how to do it themselves. Become completely sovereign or independent on providing our own food, producing it locally.
I think incorporating buffalo back into our diet is very important. It wasn't just a cultural food that we were so used to eating, but even just looking at the nutritional side of it, it's so much more leaner.
We currently have around 150 buffalo on the property. Right now we are focused on building out the infrastructure at the ranch, which requires the fencing, the water.
I think it's so important to be involved with the community because it builds trust. That's another thing that I'm really proud of here at Redco is they take community input very serious and they do something to change it immediately.
You know, there isn't any time to reinvent the wheel. Supporting local small businesses, native owned, is what we have to start doing.
The National Center is
critical to tribal businesses, to small businesses.
I see them supporting tribal enterprises and the growth of those within the United States.
Connecting them to government contracting, marketing services.
I think it's a good step forward to making relationships.
I'm actually going to take a lot of this information back to several people back on our reservation that I know are starting to try and open their own business.
Our mission is to spark a prairie fire food movement to indigenize our food system.
I see a lot of progress. I'm excited about the new opportunities to preserve our sovereignty and to work on our common needs.
This is where Native should be on the forefront with their businesses.
Food sovereignty work doesn't have to be what we're doing. I think it's anything around like learning how to cook, learning how to hunt, learning how to grow your own food. Going forward, I would love to see people's mind shift around what is healthy food. It doesn't have to taste gross to be healthy.
I would like for people to remember what their Lakota values are, because those values will guide you.
Indian-owned businesses can flourish and support one another and just move down this green path together.
Tribes need to be at the table to also be saying, like, look, federal government, this is what we need. And we don't have that type of like liaison or nexus without people who are actually here working on them. So, and that's not to say that every Native needs to work on Native issues. It just needs to be like, well, we need to be at the table.
The Kodiak Brown Bear Center, we're an ecotourism lodge. We were established about 8-9 years ago. We provide trips, boat rides, and tours, hiking, kayaking, fishing, and of course, guided tours. The Kodiak Brown Bear, the largest omnivore in the world. We consider ourselves a luxury lodge. We house usually about 8 people during the summer because we have 4 cabins, so dual occupancy in those. For corporate retreats, we bring in about 60. We just built in our new 2,000 square foot gathering room with commercial kitchen. About 120,000 of the acres that Kodiak received under the Last Claim Settlement Act in 1971 are these lands. We're on an island inside of an island here in Kodiak. It's only accessible by helicopter or float plane, unless you really want to hike and swim. Traditional Native lands weren't really in those plush, high traffic type of locations. And this was an area where we felt that the beauty, our culture, this is a way for us to offer that back to our community. Visitors come in from all around the world. They're constantly coming because they're really mesmerized about the Kodiak brown bear. These bears get over 10, 11 feet tall. Record setters are up around 1,600 pounds. They're fattening up on all the salmon before they head up into these hills. Every year we are sponsors at Res, and we feel that that's an importance because we need to all share our stories, share the good stories, also the lessons learned. When we come together as a Native people, we're unstoppable. It fills me with pride every year I go out there and see us all having conversations and strategic planning and working in this new environment that is modern economic development. The National Center does an excellent job bringing us together to share those stories, good ones and the challenges, and show how we persevered. By providing these opportunities in these entrepreneurial type of endeavors, brings our brain power back in, it brings our students back home and gives them jobs and makes our community sustainable. We've been entrepreneurial our whole lives, right? We've had very little early on. Many of our tribes and many of us grew up in poverty and homelessness. I believe by getting these opportunities to be entrepreneurial gives us an opportunity to really give back into our communities. who are now economic drivers and leaders, and it fills me with a lot of pride. I love saying I'm Supiakalutik. I love saying I work for my native corporation. It's an area where we don't go, oh, I'm native. We say, yes, I am native, and I'm very proud to be native. And when you see things like this, where everyone in the world comes to me and goes, this is amazing, it really fills you with passion to keep going the next day. That's why I love coming out here. It gives me a little touch to my ancestors and allows me to keep pushing forward as we think 7 generations out ourselves. Because we want this place to be sustainable. This is an opportunity for people to say, wow, I want to see a brown bear. And they think about Kodiak. Now they start to think about us. And that's really was a large part of the driver, is making sure that people knew what our story was. I know a lot of times we talk about economic development and say, oh, well, I don't know if I necessarily want to commercialize my business opportunities or my culture. We feel that it's an opportunity to tell our story, which I think as Native people is extremely important. We've been on this island for 7,000 years, and we're not going anywhere.
So I'm Richard. I'm manager with JLV Integration Technologies, and we're a subcontractor providing IT services through a prime contract with the Department of Defense. We want to just continue, developing the work that we're currently doing with the Department of Defense, and maybe taking advantage of other contracts with other agencies, maybe in the health IT sector. I really enjoyed the contracting presentation today, but it really helped to have someone with all of the knowledge that he had, John, to kind of just connect all the dots, basically. So now I have a better understanding of what my company is going to be needing to do to remain compliant in the 8A program, and how to be aware of new contracting opportunities and connect with the right people to get those opportunities. So it was very helpful. I'm so glad that I came.
My name is Garrett Marrero. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Maui Brewing Company. I'm originally from San Diego, California. For the last 17 years, I've been here in Maui. Started the business in 2005, and here we are today. Well, this is most certainly not what we started with. By comparison, this is a 5.5 acre site with 85,000 square feet of what I would call brewing mecca. A lot of high technology in here, restaurant, etc. We started with a kind of shady little metal warehouse production facility in Lahaina. And actually right before that, we had our brew pub in Kahana, which was a 7-barrel system, very small place. Humble compared to today's standards. But the tanks you walked past on the way up today, those were the biggest tanks we owned when we started. So they're now our garden fixtures by comparison. This facility is the what we call kind of our flagship, or HQ, if you will. So we have the Kihei restaurant is here on the front portion of the building. Where on the side here is we refer to it as the tasting room. So we don't open it normally during the day. And honestly, a lot of reason this area is available to us right now is just staffing issues. Being able to find people to join the team and to frankly work is a challenge right now. And then we have about 65,000 square feet back here, which is all the brewing area. And I would say too that we're a brewery, distillery, and a winery. We actually produce all different types of beverage alcohol. Not wine, as most people would think, but cider is considered wine, and we like to dabble in that from time to time. So this is our outdoor cellar. So out here we have 9 250-barrel fermenting vessels, what we call fermenters, or FVs. So really wort production, wort is young beer. Basically we take malted barley and we mash it with hot water. It's kind of a oatmeal cereal-like process, right? And what that's doing is converting starches into sugars. We want those sugars, but then we want the grain, the malted barley, to stay behind. So we separate that, and all that rich nutrient and sugar-dense liquid called wort, that gets pumped out here to fermenters with yeast. And in these tanks is where the yeast does its magical process of converting sugars into alcohol and CO2. A cool thing out here too is you see how big these tanks are. Starting in 2005, we had very small tanks, and we did our entire annual production of beer in 2005 would fit in less than one of these tanks. And so nowadays these are full all the time, and we've recently been talking about adding 9 more along the road here. I think craft beer drinkers, their tastes have changed over the years, especially when you're talking about IPA and, whether what used to be piney and, really different style IPA is now much more juicy. So even though Big Swell IPA is still the name, it's a very different beer today than it was back in 2006 and 2007 when we first created that one.
And it's always going to continue to change.
Yeah, I think as a business owner, you've always got to listen to your audience. And when you see things changing in the market, there are some things that maybe you need to be steadfast on, but there are others that you need to adapt in order to stay relevant, frankly, in the market. Pre-COVID, we had a little over 700 teammates between the production brewery location and the 4 restaurants. We are somewhere in that 350 to 400 range now. That's a moving target because the model has shifted so much as it pertains to COVID. The brewery has as many, if not more, than we had pre-COVID, but the restaurants, of course, because of the self-serve, order at your table, every location has different kind of formats to it because of the varied restrictions here in Hawaii. We may be a state, but each county played by its own rules. And so with the 4 restaurants between 2 islands, it presented a challenge. The hardest parts were laying off teammates, right? And I have to give kudos to my teammate, Chris Tebow. He's my partner. He's president of our restaurant division, so Maui Brewing Restaurant Group. And between him and his team, he had to lay off something on the order of 600 people in the span of a day. And that wasn't easy. That wasn't easy for anybody. It's definitely not something I would have wanted to do. But here at the brewery, we were able to get by for quite some time without doing layoffs. At the outset, we looked at 5 weeks or so to flatten the curve, and it became clear to us in late May, when we didn't have orders coming in or really any beer going out, that we had finished painting the building, we'd done all the things we could do with the team, and we did have to do a layoff. That was certainly the toughest part. I think as an owner, as a CEO, it's your job to insulate your teammates from a lot of the fear that was being pushed around, especially from a financial standpoint. We were having weekly meetings on burn rate and cash position and what is the plan for next week, and things would change, and what's now the plan for even today, right? So fortunately, we have a great team. We did lose our CFO in this past December, passed unexpectedly, but through his hard work and support, we were in a very strong financial position even going into COVID. We both had the idea that this can't be so good forever, so we got to build a nice nest egg, and we had that reserve. So we saw a recession, we didn't see a pandemic, but that carried us through. And I would say just the unpredictability and the constantly changing rules, which trying to navigate that here in Hawaii was just an impossibility. So you were just hopeful you were in compliance most of the time. Yeah.
So you said we're sitting in HQ, we're sitting in the flagship store. How many are there on other islands?
Sure, so we have 4 locations. We have 2 on Oahu and 2 on Maui. So it's Kihei here. Our original site is actually Kahana, which is the northwest side of the island here, just north of Lahaina. So we still own and operate that location from day one. And then we have on Oahu, we have Kailua and we have Waikiki. So each one has its own nuances, and I think our smallest location is Kahana, the original, and that's about just shy of 5,000 square feet. And then working your way up to Waikiki, that one is the biggest restaurant location of about 18,000 square feet or so.
Have you ever thought about bringing it to the mainland area?
Yeah, absolutely. We sell in the mainland now beer and seltzer. We're starting to expand to take our spirits to the mainland as well, our Kupu Spirits line. We have considered restaurants over there, where they make sense, but this last couple of years, of course, has been focused on keeping this ship running and making sure that we grow smart. And I would say that because of the success of our brands over 17 years, we've got a lot of great opportunities with locations that are coming to us, both in the mainland and abroad. So I see us going in two directions, really, mainland and towards the APAC markets, so looking at Japan in particular, New Zealand, Australia. So this is our main production facility, so about 65,000 square feet under roof. It's just a lot of noise, there's a lot of action, forklifts, keg filling, cans running. This is really dry storage in most part. We do have some liquid storage here for our distillery, so we have to import certain base ingredients and store them safely. Safety is a huge factor in a brewery and distillery. Things are flammable, so you got to make sure you're caring for it. And you see in the back all those big stacks of cans. Those are actually empty cans. Those are made over on Oahu, and they ship them over here for us to fill them and seam them. But this area is going to rapidly change in the next 6 months. This will be a 2-level building here with a bunch more packaging equipment, so we can take our efficiency up in the packaging. From 250 cans a minute, we'll be running at 550 cans a minute with 2 robots and a lot of cool equipment.
How do you plan on correlating your brand going internationally?
I think every time we have an evolution, whether that be going from the single brew pub location in Kahana to a production brewery in Lahaina to this facility and then 3 restaurants within, it was just under 3 years. Each restaurant has its own personality, and so you have to take a step back and look at the entire picture, but also how do you make this one its own thing? Because the last thing we ever want to create is something that someone leaves and says, oh, I've been to one, I've been to them all. That would not be a good thing for us. I used to have a rule that was like, if there's more than 2, I won't go, right? And of course now we have 4, so it's a little bit different. But that's also because each place is nuanced in its own personality. So correlating that to going international, I think understanding the audience, having a presence there that is beyond, hey, our business is open for you to come spend money. It's what do we do for the community? What do we bring to that area? And why are we relevant to be there? If we're not relevant, then why would we go there? And it's something that the communities we go to, as well as within the company, everyone should be celebrating our arrival, not hating on it. There will always be a little of that. But I think in particular, Japan and Hawaii have a kinship for sure. So, going over to Japan, I've probably never had more warm reception than our fans in Japan. Every time I go there, it's just like, these last 2 years have been difficult for not being able to go because I was on a pretty much at least an annual trip there. And the same thing stands for the mainland. As right now we contract brew, we just started that recently through a partner brewery for our mainland production. But we look to buy a brewery on the mainland or build one and really invest in a community there to give us that footprint locally. So everything that we built here, we plan to build outside of Hawaii as well. So out here, this is our Tesla power packs. This is our battery bank. So we're solar powered brewery, but really a lot of times of the day we're battery powered. All of our solar directly feeds to the building. We're about 1.2 megawatts of solar energy here. Covers a substantial portion of our energy. It can range from 65 up to 90% of our energy depending on time of year and what production we're doing. But any excess energy rolls over into the batteries. So at night, the batteries feed back to the building. What you see above us is a solar awning. Our building is completely covered in solar panels. So to generate that 1.2 megawatts of solar, it's thousands of panels up on the roof. We live in a beautiful place and we want to keep it that way. So trying to work with as little fossil fuel, as little plastic, as little trash really as possible is important to us.
What would help you achieve that goal of moving in both directions, mainland and abroad?
That's a constantly moving target right now, especially. Still restrictions that we have not only in Hawaii, but with Japanese visitors, also us going to Japan. You know, to even start a meeting over there, I've got to sit in a hotel for 10 days. So that's difficult. The mainland is a little easier. I think though it's just finding the right spot. Again, because of the success of our company over 17 years, we have the access to the capital to be able to do those projects. I think the number one thing, frankly, is time. Right? There's never enough time as a business owner, and especially in my position. There's still a lot of things that I do on a day-to-day that really should be delegated. And again, with the recent loss of our good friend and CFO, Russell Adkins, that's left a bit of a hole. So we did actually just today get an accepted offer for that position. So I'm very excited to bring the candidate on board. And that will allow me to maybe step back a little bit to focus working on versus in the company. And I know that sounds like a small thing, but as a CEO and as the person who had the vision for the company, you need to be able to focus on that vision and to drive that vision, not working in a day-to-day stuck in a computer capacity. But you have to balance that with the time on the floor. You know, I joke the shaking hands and kissing babies side of seeing your teammates and asking about their husbands or wives and kids and those types of things, because we are at the end of the day, we're an ohana here, and many of us don't have family here in the island, so we fill that role. I'd love to grow team pay, team benefits, just to bring some of the fun back that was, the fun police came in COVID. We weren't allowed to have beers together, right? So being able to do those things again are number one. With the hire of our CFO today, I feel really strong that we've got a great C-suite again. This year we should grow somewhere around 40%, which is a pretty good growth rate coming out of COVID. And that's a testament to everybody in this building and the three others of the hard work that they've put together over the last couple of years. That when we had COVID, when we were at our darkest, I said, there's no point in hanging your head low and being upset, and we can cry over this, or we can build ourselves to be coming out of COVID like a rocket ship. And that's what we did. We didn't want to get bogged down with the negativity that was out there, and instead sort of, okay, how do we reform it? How do we move things around to really use this as an advantage and come out ahead? And a testament to the team that we were able to do that. It's amazing to be brewing as much beer and liquid overall that we do, and still be short production. We just need more beer, and there are worse problems to have. So this is the canning line. So we run a Cronus 32 valve filler, Angelus forehead seamer. That's all like technical jargon, but essentially this equipment here takes empty cans and makes full cans out of them. So it puts our beer, our seltzer, our canned cocktails, as well as even our cold brew coffee that we do into the can, so we can ship it out from our docks here. But this is one point where we're expanding and making more investment here in the building, taking it from, like I said, about 250 cans a minute up to 550 can a minute line. That'll span essentially the whole building.
So where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I talked with my C-suite recently about this, and God, I have a short-term goal, and short-term for me is a couple of years of working 4 days a week. That's really big, lofty goals, and that's just because, I've been grinding it out for 17 years now at this point, and it's time that, as much as I want to work on the business, that I also think about myself a little bit, and at times, you recognize that you might need to be a little selfish occasionally, because there is no question that if things turned, that your commitment would be only reaffirmed and dive back in for 7 days if that's what it takes. And that's where I currently am, due to not only COVID, but the loss of our CFO. But yeah, in 5 years, I'd love to have at least one location in Japan, another in a Western state, I'll say, and just looking to grow our brand. The spirit of Hawaii, the spirit of aloha, when you say Maui, people have this vision in their head, whether they've been here or not. And I'd love to take that vision and give them that experience closer to them. So being able to build our brand across the entire country is something that I look at as certainly a goal for me. We have been widely accepted, and not only for our work in beer, because that's what we do is beer, but what we are is so much more than that. And it's how we invest in the community, how we treat others. I think beyond that, it's just continue to connect with the community that we're in wherever we are.
So if you were to go back to those 17 years ago, what would you tell your younger self that started in this business?
Sure. Well, I was 26 when I started this company with Melanie, my ex-wife, still one of my closest friends today. I would probably tell myself a lot of things, but knowing my 26-year-old self, I wouldn't listen. You know, I think like many 26-year-old men, you know everything, or you think you do, and you're infallible, which is actually, I think, in this business, you're willing to take a lot more risks than maybe you are at 43. And you know, at 26, I didn't have anything to lose. It was a dream that I was pursuing, and you know, if I failed, I could always go get a job. Whereas at 43, it's a different situation. You know, I could go get a job, but I'd be the worst employee you've ever seen. So, you know, I think a few of the things would be to maybe focus. As focused as I was, I think there are areas I could have focused a little bit better on. You know, I think in terms of my relationship sometimes with Melanie and looking at, you know, as much as I was driven to see the business succeed, I often didn't take the right or make the right decisions in taking the right path as it pertained to a relationship. So knowing what's most important to you is really important. You know, and I might have thought about bringing more people into the company earlier than trying to do everything myself, and that also threads into that relationship discussion. So I think it was just defining when you need the help and looking for the right help rather than trying to take it all on your shoulders. And as much as you need to work your butt off to succeed, take a breath. Yeah.
If you met somebody that wanted to get into brewing, what would you tell them about the business?
That's kind of a funny question, actually. I meet a lot of people that want to get into the brewing business, and my first response to them is usually just don't do it. You know, it's a lot of glamour sometimes from the outside. It's like, oh, cool, your job's making beer, and you have this beautiful facility. What they don't see is the 17 years of hard work that it took to get to this point. But it's a very difficult business, very capital intensive. I would say make sure it's your passion. I would say make sure you look at your finances and fully understand that. If you're asking or thinking about how much vacation you're gonna get in your first year, it's probably not the work for you. And if you're getting into beer for money, then you should probably find another job. But if all those things sound okay and you're willing to grind it out and work harder than you've ever worked, then brewing may be for you.
Growing up, who is your role model and who do you contribute your strong work ethic to?
I think my strong work ethic definitely comes from my mom and dad. They split when we were, I was early teens, maybe I think 13, 14, somewhere in there. And so, that was tough, but that hardens you a little bit. That kind of helps you grow up. I often talk to my older sister and I say, when that happened, that kind of forced your, as I call it, my inner lion, if you will, to come out, because you learn to develop skills that you probably wouldn't have otherwise. Certainly not a fan of using that as a way to grow, but you got to live with what life puts in front of you and make the best of it. My dad was extremely hard on us when it comes to learning as much about everything as we can. So it was become the expert was something he always told us, positive mental attitude. We couldn't just do something, we had to be the best at it. And we were instilled with the knowledge that no matter what it was that we wanted to accomplish, even if we didn't know how to do it, the only issue was we didn't know how to do it yet. And so we could find that information and problem solve our way to success. From a, what do you call it, someone who I admired or a mentor, I loved Arnold Schwarzenegger growing up, frankly. Like, I loved Commando, and I always have worked out, and so that was a big part of my life. Watching him through his career and becoming governor. I know he's probably not the first person to think of, but also there was a part of me that loved Gordon Gekko and the piece of that character, that fictional character in Wall Street. And truth be told, before I was in brewing, I was in finance, and that was because of what I saw in the stock market. And what I loved about that was the dynamic nature, that every day was something new. And it was almost like in the Matrix, you have to read the code. That's what, to me, you see on the tickers, right? And you see wealth moving, and you see opportunity, right? Chaos breeds opportunity, and you have to be prepared to pounce on that opportunity. So.
Darren Maston, President, CEO, and founder of Clear Cloud Solutions Incorporated. We are a security systems integration company. We install, service, sell, and design security systems to protect people and property.
We are a licensed contractor. We do installations of security systems and equipment, but we really consider ourselves a technology company.
Clear Cloud's always kind of at the cutting edge of technology. So we're always trying new stuff. We're always looking at new products and new technologies out there that we can implement.
We have the responsibility currently today of protecting some of the most critical assets in the utility industry.
Clear Cloud Solution is also involved in intrusion detection. When somebody shoots a gun or whatever the case may be, or somebody breaks in, it has analytics where it actually follows individuals where that instance may have occurred.
Obviously, there's a lot going on in the world and in our country as it relates to cybersecurity. Some of those technologies that we could only imagine 5 or 10 years ago, we're implementing those today.
We fabricate a lot of control panels in-house. We take all the components and wire them up to all work together with the power supplies, the battery backups, network modules so they can monitor everything, put it all in one package.
We go out there and we're proud of the work that we do. And sometimes I go behind some other work that was there that's kind of going to interfere with what I'm doing, and I clean that up.
Clear Cloud Solution has no boundaries for service. Wherever you guys need us to work, that's where we're at.
The bulk of our business is down in the Southern California market, where a larger office and warehouse exists. We've been able to venture out and open an office in Phoenix, Arizona, soon to move into Northern California and other parts of the country where we have national contracts and opportunity to go coast to coast.
Physical security and cybersecurity has to be comprehensive. It's in your product decisions, it's in your manufacturer decisions, and it's in your installation. So because we have people that understand the network very well on our technical side and our engineering department, we take clients from conception to execution better than the competition.
If you want to be a federal contractor today, you've got to be at a certain level with your own personal cybersecurity. We're able to provide a service to help those companies identify where their weaknesses are and help them get to the level that they need to.
We've pretty much gone steady like this throughout the past 5 years, and I don't see us slowing down.
He doesn't give up on anything. He's a very determined man.
Growing up, when I had obstacles and growing up, on the reservation, all the different things that come up as a kid, those create your character. And so as we hit stumbling blocks in the infant stages of the company, storms that we overcame and got through that created the character that prepares us for future storms. And it ensures our longevity, it ensures our ability to go through obstacles and hindrances in the future. And that goes for not just me, but my team as well.